This type of car is everywhere. On highways, in cities, in parking lots. SUVs have taken over. Look around for just a moment. Count how many you see. Doesn't matter where you are. They're there. And today it feels completely normal. Like this is how it has always been. But it hasn't. Because there was a time when this kind of vehicle barely existed. A time when the roads looked very different. Sedans dominated. Station wagons filled family driveways. And trucks were tools, not daily transportation. They were built for work, not comfort, not convenience, and certainly not for everyday driving. SUVs, as we know them today, didn't really exist. And then something changed. Not overnight, but in a way that slowly reshaped everything. Because one car introduced an idea that people didn't realize they needed until they experienced it. Jeep Cherokee. To understand why that matters, you have to go back to what the automotive world looked like before it arrived. For decades, the industry followed clear categories. If you wanted comfort, you bought a sedan. If you needed space for your family, you bought a station wagon. And if you needed capability, you bought a truck. Each of these options made sense. But each one came with trade-offs. Sedans were comfortable, but limited. They struggled in rough conditions, and they offered little flexibility beyond daily commuting. Station wagons added space, but they did not change the driving experience. They were practical, but rarely exciting. And trucks, while capable, were not designed for comfort. They were heavy, rough, and difficult to drive in everyday situations. For most people, they were unnecessary. There was no real combination of these qualities, no vehicle that could do everything reasonably well. Until the Cherokee. When it was introduced in the early 1980s, it did not immediately look revolutionary. It was compact, boxy, simple in appearance. But underneath, it was different. Because the Cherokee was not just another truck. It used something called unibody construction, instead of the traditional body-on-frame design. This made it lighter and stronger, more rigid, and more refined to drive. It handled better, felt more controlled, more predictable, closer to a car than a truck. But it didn't lose what made trucks useful. It still had four-wheel drive. It still had ground clearance. It still had the ability to go places other vehicles couldn't. And that combination was something new. Because for the first time, a vehicle didn't force you to choose. You could have comfort and capability in one package. At first, the impact wasn't obvious. New ideas take time, and people are cautious. They don't immediately trust something unfamiliar. But slowly, that began to change. Drivers started to notice things. The higher driving position, the improved visibility, the feeling of being above the road, and something else, a sense of control, a sense of confidence. Even in situations where it might not have been necessary, that feeling mattered. It mattered more than specifications, more than numbers, because how something feels often matters more than what it is. The Cherokee also offered something else: versatility. It could handle daily commuting. It could handle long trips. It could handle bad weather. It could handle rough roads, all without requiring a different vehicle. And for many people, that flexibility was exactly what they needed. It simplified things. One car for everything. And that idea started to spread. Because once people experience convenience, they do not want to go back. At the same time, the market itself was changing. Families were evolving. Driving habits were changing. People wanted more space, more practicality, but without sacrificing comfort. And the Cherokee fit that shift perfectly. Other manufacturers began to notice. At first, cautiously, then more aggressively. They saw the potential, and they started building their own versions. Compact SUVs, then mid-size, then larger vehicles, each one adding something new. More comfort, more features, more refinement. And as competition increased, so did demand. Because now, Consumers had options, and those options were improving quickly. The idea that started as something different was becoming something desirable, and then something expected. By the 1990s, SUVs were no longer unusual. They were becoming common, and with that growth, the segment expanded. Luxury brands entered the space, adding premium materials, advanced technology, and higher levels of comfort. What started as a practical idea became something more, something aspirational, something people wanted, not just needed, and that changed everything. Because once a vehicle becomes both practical and desirable, its growth accelerates, and that is exactly what happened. SUVs moved from niche to mainstream, and then from mainstream to dominant. But the Cherokee did not just influence design, it changed perception. Before, vehicles had clear roles. After, those roles started to disappear. A single vehicle could do multiple things, replace multiple categories, and adapt to different lifestyles. That flexibility became the new standard. There is another layer to this story. Not everything about this shift was planned. The Cherokee was not created to take over the market. It was not designed to replace sedans or wagons. It was simply designed to offer something different, something useful, and it happened to align perfectly with what people wanted at the right time. Because timing matters a lot. The same idea at a different moment might not have worked, but here, it did. And once momentum builds, it becomes very difficult to stop. Today, SUVs dominate the market. In many regions, they represent the majority of vehicle sales. From small crossovers to large luxury vehicles, from basic transportation to high-performance machines, they exist in every segment and at every price point. For many people, they are the default choice, not an alternative, not a specialty, but the standard. And all of that can be traced back to a moment when something changed. The Cherokee didn't invent the concept of off-road vehicles. That idea already existed, but it changed how that concept could be used. It made it practical, accessible, and relevant to everyday life. And that's what makes it important, because it didn't just follow a trend, it created one. It introduced a new way of thinking about cars, a new set of expectations, a new definition of what a vehicle could be. And once that definition changed, everything else followed. But here's the question that remains. If the Cherokee had never existed, would something else have taken its place? Would another company have introduced the same idea? Or did this one car, at this one moment, start something that might never have happened otherwise? Because sometimes, change doesn't come from necessity. It comes from possibility. And once people see what's possible, they don't want to go back. And that's exactly what happened here. And the real question is this: are SUVs the result of evolution or the result of one idea that arrived at exactly the right time?